my pretties, it's Minder, and welcome to another 13 Days of Halloween by Nightmare Nocturne. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon. Today's story comes from Nate S. He was so generous in sharing his experiences as well as his family's experiences. My family is very nomadic in general. We never really stay in one house for too long. Both my parents and grandparents are pretty infamous for moving around. I remember the first thing my family ever experienced was when we had pet cats. We always kept the basement door closed so the cats wouldn't get down there, as there was about a 1-foot space between where the concrete and the wooden foundation started, and we didn't want them finding a way to escape outside and getting hit by a car. I don't blame you. We went to our grandparents often, and one time we came back to the house and we went to feed the cats, and the door leading to the basement was wide open, which was weird because we never kept it open because of the falling hazard. Some other events I personally experienced was our television in the front room and a room my uncle set up in the room between the living room and the kitchen would turn themselves on and off at random intervals. It always made me fairly uncomfortable. I'd be watching horror movies on the Sci-Fi Channel with my uncle, and the TV would just go out. One of the biggest events that comes to mind is when one of my uncles lived with us. His name was Robert Ray, and he was an alcoholic, and on more than one occasion found himself living with a family until he collected himself again. One day he was in the kitchen at the table hanging out with my stepdad, who was cooking. My family had this stand-up cabinet that we screwed into the wall that we had kept groceries in. The kitchen was a little off level, and if it wasn't screwed in, it would have cans fall off from it. It started shaking very violently and came off the screws and fell on top of my uncle with my stepdad as a witness. I heard the commotion and went into the kitchen, seeing the cabinet mess and my drunk uncle yelling and carrying on. That's really creepy. Another experience involving my Uncle Robert was one night he was passed out under heavy alcohol use in the front room on a floor pallet he would sleep on. In the dead of night, he woke up screaming and hollering drunk. I woke up, and so did my parents, only to find a huge red handprint on my uncle's face and my uncle slurring that someone was trying to get his bottle and smacked him in the mouth, with him being the only person awake. Although it could have been him just being drunk and hurting himself, the handprint in combination of my uncle being able to sleep through anything is very suspicious. My uncle was not the only one to experience the smell spirit. One night, my little brother was staying at my grandmother's house when they went into town and asked if they can go to the house to get some video game controllers, because his cousin was also staying and they didn't have enough controllers for all of them. I was in my room and my parents were in the front room and told him that there was food in the kitchen. The front room had a blanket nailed to the doorway to a room we used as a bedroom, which had another blanket separating the bedroom to the kitchen in order to lower the heat bill. My brother went to the bedroom and was about to walk into the kitchen when he saw a tall man in what looked to be either some sort of vest or overalls with his arms and shoulders out. My brother didn't get a great look, as he was instantly terrified and left the way he came. Now, that would be enough to weird anyone out, but that was not the only apparition my family has seen in this house. When we first moved into that house, my brother and sister were 10 and 8, and they stayed with my grandmother while my parents and I moved our stuff in. My dad's cousin and his wife were near, so they stopped by to see how things were going. My Aunt Lori went into the house to get away from the cold, light rain, while my uncle, dad, and I all hung out on the front porch as we were all avid storm watchers. When my uncle and Lori had left, Lori had told him that she was talking to my sister, who was wearing a white dress, even though she didn't respond and didn't see her face. My uncle told her that was impossible because my sister wasn't at the house at all and my grandmother was watching her and my brother. The spirit was a lot more active and my family has had a lot of experiences with it. Another uncle of mine, who was also an alcoholic named Jimbo, would also move in out of families at different intervals of my childhood. He would stay in our basement as our 3-bedroom house was full with 3 kids and my parents. He said he would experience his bed in the basement shaking and it would wake him up. He would also hear a small child giggling sometimes. I remember sneaking into the kitchen as a child, which was next to the basement, and hearing my uncle's extremely loud television. He later told me that he would keep the TV up as to not hear anything from the ghost while he slept. Other activities from the spirit included my father, who would wash clothes in the basement, seeing a basketball slightly bounce up and down without reason. My brother also said he could hear it sometimes at night. My family wasn't so much afraid of this ghost, and my mom even would make it a Christmas stocking as she felt as though the spirit was good and just wanted attention. Aww, how cute! Another person who experienced a spirit was my Aunt Teresa. She lived in the house before my family did and told us about it when she moved out because rent there was super cheap and the landlord was understanding. I messaged her to see if she had any experiences. She said that one time my cousin Sarah was around 5 or 6. She told her she saw something in the basement and she was terrified and started to cry about it. My parents one day were curious what was all in the crawl space in the basement. So my mother, being very small, 4'10", we went into it before we moved out and found a massive hole dug out in the dirt. She found small child's clothes and plush animals, which include a giant teddy bear that would probably cost $40 today. I did see the plushies with my own eyes. I was always slightly skeptical, but looking back, that is a huge coincidence. My mother also said when she was moving stuff out of the basement, she could hear a faint sound of a small child crying. Other instances of unexplainable stuff happening was our family cat at night would randomly hiss for no reason at all and freak out and start running. Also, my brother was playing video games in the bedroom near the kitchen when he heard a loud bang and went to check out and saw the basement door was wide open despite no one being around at the time. Nate was also kind enough to email us over a picture that he pulled up off Google Maps of the story. It sounds like that house is super active, and I wonder if it still is to this day. Thank you, Nate, for sharing your story with us. We will be back tomorrow with another real-life paranormal encounter. Sleep tight, little monsters.